what's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on for Mike here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the NCSL Dynasty here on NCAA 14, and also featuring that college football revamp as well. We find ourselves in a critical juncture here in year number 4, and that critical juncture is conference championship weekend. But this is a more crucial part of the season than any other, because in these conference championship games, each conference that you see on your screen does have an automatic bid into the college football playoff. It's a 12-team playoff, so it doesn't leave a lot of spots for those at-large teams that are out there. So big matchups happening all around the country, and I hope you're excited for the entire thing. If you're excited as I am, make sure you go ahead and smack that like button. Hit that subscribe button as well if you do have to be brand new to the channel. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right onto the field. Alright, so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the MAC Championship, the first of the automatic qualifying games happening here today. Tennessee goes on the road to DeKalb, Illinois to take on the number 10 ranked Northern Illinois Huskies. The Huskies are not only seeking their very first NCAA appearance, but they are also looking for that opportunity to make their way and win the MAC championship as well. It's been a long climb for NIU. We got a tight game going into the second quarter of action as John Cross is going to try to run that triple option, and you can see why that triple option is so effective at NCAA 14. There is just so many players that you have to account for in this offense. And not to mention, they have one of the underrated quarterbacks in the country, John Cross. And John Cross has been slinging it all year long. 46 touchdown passes on the year for John Cross. That helps expand his school record that he has had for the last couple of games, actually. So, NIU is going to take the lead, and they have a chance to expand that lead going to the final 2 minutes of this first half. As John Cross is going to go ahead, call out Christian Smith. He'll pick up the first down, as now the Huskies will quickly get to the line of scrimmage. 1st and 10 once again, trying to set up the halfback screen, but can't get it out in time. John Cross is going to take a significant loss. Goes for a loss of 10. So that makes it 3rd and 20. Gonna need a big time throw. He's gonna throw across his body, and he somehow gets it completed. How does he get that one pulled off? I have no idea. Just the defender losing track of the ball in the air. I can't believe what I've just witnessed. But NIU still has the ball, and they're inside the 30-yard line. Cross gets to the line quickly. Cross dropping back, trying to set up the screen yet again. This time it is completed, and we got our running back down the sideline. Lance Tate is going to be pushed out of bounds. What a big time gain for the Husky tailback. As they're down by the goal line now, looking to extend the lead, and they will, with Lance Brown finding the end zone. Touchdown NIU, and the Huskies will extend their lead, but Tennessee could very well have the final laugh here in this first half, as Bo Burns will get out of bounds, and it will allow Tennessee to have at least one more shot at the end zone if they want it, and they're going to get it. Sam Graves quickly find the end zone. That is a touchdown for the Volunteers. Meanwhile, we jump right into the fourth quarter. It remains tight the entire game. With less than 6 minutes left to play, Tim Landrum is going to put the Volunteers ahead by a field goal. So now NIU has to drive down the length of the field, going to throw it deep on a 2nd and 11. Just a one-on-one ball that just happens to be caught. John Cross gets yet another completion, and that will give him a school record, another school record for most passing yards in a season. It sets up a short field goal for the Huskies that does get laced through. It looks like we're going to overtime. So a very exciting first game here in Conference Championship weekend as we come out into overtime, as NIU is going to settle for a field goal after they fail to move the ball down the field. They try the field goal, but this time it's missed. The field goal is missed, and now all Tennessee got to do, they got to lace one through themselves, and they're going to go on to the playoff. Landrum, throw it to left hand side, it's intercepted. Hold up now, wait a minute. This could be going the other way. He could go all the way. Does he do it? Yes, he does. There's no flags on the field. And that is how NIU is going to its very first college football playoff. Imagine that. An overtime thriller that NIU successfully pulls off, after all. Now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump right into the Big 12 Championship. And in this Big 12 Championship is where we find our very first top 25 matchup here in the Conference Championship weekend. The Texas Longhorns have been surging through the last half of the season, and they find themselves here with a 9-3 record. TCU, on the other hand, making their first conference championship game. They are here in their home stadium, looks like Fort Worth, Texas, as TCU does remain ranked in the top 20. But the objective is the same: win this game, and you're going to the playoff, getting the AQ bid for the Big 12. Magnum's going to look over to the right-hand side, finds Austin Tyler on the slant, and that was just simply making it look easy. Carl Magnum's going to quickly allow Texas to score midway through the first quarter of this Big 12 championship. But it seems evident that Texas came to play, because very next possession with the first play of the second quarter, trying to throw it up. No! We were bamboozled there. Thought we were going to see another Texas touchdown. Hold up, wait a minute. Y'all thought I was finished. Antonio Miller was able to pick that off of the sky. And TCU's defense is keeping the Horned Frogs in the game. But eventually, you got to get points on the board, and it's just not happening. You cannot get Texas into a rock fight. The offense of Texas is simply too good for that kind of thing to happen. So, 14-0 now is going to be your score, as we'll go ahead and see TCU trying to do something here in this first half. And oh, they do something offensively all right. They just turn that football over with inside the 5-minute mark, trying to get that comeback route. But the corner practically ran the route for him. Like, knew exactly what 81 was going to do and acted directly upon it. So now Carl Magnum has another chance to put points on the board, and it seems quickly evident that Texas might very well run away with this. Texas dominating this first half of action, going to be up 21-0 at the half. TCU does get a field goal late, but the Horned Frogs are struggling mightily here at home. They are going to need to really put together one of their best halves of football in their entire season if they want to come back from this deficit. Rollins going to line up and throw to right inside and finds Brian Long in the end zone. Touchdown, Horned Frogs. And the Horned Frogs cut it to just 11. This game is certainly going to be far from over, especially on the ensuing play. Texas in the shotgun with Magnum. Drops back, fires to the left-hand side, and it's picked off. It's going to be intercepted. TCU starts the ball inside the 40-yard line, but they can't really capitalize, however. So a golden opportunity for TCU to get back into this game. It gets completely wasted, unfortunately. So, still 21-10 your score, or at least that was going to be your score. Except Carl Magnum is going to find the end zone on the ground again. And the Longhorns are going to secure victory. They win their 10th game of the season, and they beat TCU on the road 28-10, being your final score. Texas is moving on to the playoff. Now, with that being said, we have yet another top 25 game ready to come to your direction, and we go to the Bayou for this one. Not too far from where TCU plays its college football, and from a geographical standpoint. It's Ole Miss. Ole Miss, number 13 in the nation, going on the road to take on number 5 LSU. LSU getting that close win in the last seconds of their previous matchup, where they took on Arkansas for the Bayou divisional title. For Ole Miss, it was a little bit more comfortable. You see the Dixie Division standings. Nobody was really challenging Ole Miss this season, at least within the Dixie, it seemed like. So, Ole Miss does find itself on the road, but they start with the ball first, and they set a tone early. Gerald Jackson is going to take this run 50 yards, and it sets up the Rebels already in red zone positioning. A couple of plays later, their quarterback is going to take it on the read option, and Chad Heath, well, he is going to break a couple of tackles on his way into the end zone, and we are not even one singular minute into this game, and Ole Miss is already up 7-0. LSU cannot respond. They had to punt the football away, so Chad Heath's offense comes out onto the field. He tries to throw it over the middle, but man, that was a crowded area to try to fit that ball through, and Brad Skinner is going to ultimately make him pay for it. Slow start for Chad Heath with the arm, and LSU does get set up with nice field position, but they can't do anything with it. They end up going 3 and out, actually, so it's still 7-0 before we see James Sanders really able to get that 10 toes down movement in his feet, and is able to get another touchdown. Touchdown for the air for Chad Heath to make up for the interception that he threw on the previous drive. So Ole Miss quickly taking control and doing something that is almost impossible to do here at LSU. The crowd is stone cold silent. You could practically hear a mouse fart in this stadium right now. Inside 2 minutes left to play. Heath's going to drop back again, facing the blitz. But will calmly find Charles Rhodes in the end zone. Touchdown, Ole Miss, another score. And Ole Miss not only in the lead, but it's commanding as well. 24-0. And they can easily grow upon this too. Chad Heath given another red zone opportunity, but can't finish it. He's going to throw an interception in the end zone. And that is going to be your end of the first half. Hopefully LSU can take something positive out of that. But 24-0 is going to be a big deficit to overcome. But wait a minute. This might be the spark that they have needed this entire time. LSU finds the end zone for the very first time today. Touchdown LSU. And the Tigers of the Bayou finally get on the scoreboard. And now, if you're going to even go for the 2-point conversion as well, make this a 2-score game. 2-point conversion is successful. Travell Bankston, one of your guys' customs, able to slice that through. Nice job by Derek Brown reading the slant there. So LSU gets on the board. So maybe this could spark their offense. But first, they got to stop Ole Miss themselves. And they just haven't been able to do that today. It has been a struggle to stop this offense all day long. I mean, that was a good throw too. So LSU back to where they started, down 3 possessions. This might quickly become 4, and it is. Touchdown Rebels. And the Rebels are going to take a 30-point lead. I mean, this is a shocker. This is absolutely a shocker if I have ever seen one. 38-8 is your score. And now Ole Miss can put the nail in the coffin. They're just trying to run the clock out at this point. They're not trying to score here, but the opportunity presents itself and LSU can't tackle anymore. But I mean, who am I as a man to tell someone that they can't find the end zone one more time? LSU is going to win 45-8 and sending a message to the rest of the college football world that they are simply not a team to be messed with or to be trifled with either. But now we'll head over to the northeastern part of the country where we have one of the classiest rivalries in college football on our hands, the Army-Navy game. Yes, we do have a matchup of the classic Army-Navy game. But per NCSL rules, this is not taking place on a neutral site field this time. This will be taking place at Mitchie Field up in West Point, where Navy will be looking to try to pull an upset on the number 8 team in the nation, the Army Black Knights. If Army could win, not only should they be able to get a pretty decent seed, but also we would have more than one triple option team in the college football playoff. Imagine that. And Army is looking to make exactly that happen as Martin Wyatt is going to find the end zone for the Army Black Knights. And because Navy missed their extra point earlier, Army is going to take a short lead. However, about 3.5 minutes left to play in the first half. Navy drives the ball down the field, where Spencer Grant is going to set the new passing yards record at Navy. It's been a little bit of a revolution offensively for the midshipmen, transferring away from their triple option tendencies. And while there's been some bumpy rides, maybe we're starting to see some positive effects here. They're still very much in this game against Navy, and because they changed their playbook up, this is better for coming back in games. And Mike Thompson not only does not have to worry about being behind anymore, he's going to take the lead, and Spencer Grant is also going to set another school record, one for passing touchdowns. Could very well become the first Navy quarterback with 30 passing touchdowns in a single season. That is what that could be at stake. But I'm sure Navy is more interested in trying to finish this game in general, as they have a 9-point lead going into that final quarter of action. For goal line situation, Navy trying to score yet again. No one goes with the quarterback, and Spencer Grant, albeit hit a little bit late, he finds the end zone practically untouched. They even had the audacity to go for the 2-point conversion. They get the 2-point conversion, and that was enough to take down Army in their stadium. An upset complete, as we have a bid stealer in the Conference USA. But now we go into one of the biggest matchups in college football this particular week. Number 2 Miami taking on number 3 Georgia. And this game is actually going to take place in Athens, Georgia. I am surprised that this game is in Georgia and not at Miami. Yes, I know these two teams have the same conference record, but I would figure that because Miami is a little bit higher ranked, this game should be taking place at Hard Rock Stadium. So, a little bit surprised that the SEC decided to have it at Athens instead, but Miami does not care about it, at least early on. Miami's going to get off to a nice start, finding Cedric Ward in the end zone, and Rodney Walker came to play. He starts off perfect in this first quarter of action, completing his first 6 passes, and the Hurricanes are quickly giving tumultuous weather to the Bulldogs, up 10-0. So Georgia's going to come back and win this. First, they're going to need more of their defense, but also Frederick Moore is going to have to try and actually move this ball down the field. It's been a challenge for the Bulldogs nonetheless, as a 3rd and 7 comes up, facing an all-out blitz. Moore throws at the last second, somehow finds Sean Garcia for 40 yards down the field. That felt like an absolute desperation throw, but we're glad that it worked. It was a bold strategy for Cotton, but we're glad that the bold strategy did end up working for Cotton after all. That being said, later on in the second quarter, as Miami is still up by 10, even with those big plays, eventually Georgia's going to have to find the end zone. The defense has settled down. Jake Jacobs has made some good adjustments, but eventually Georgia's got to score offensively, and they will, thankfully, with Elliott Hartman. Elliott Hartman's going to score for Georgia, and they're right back into the game. It remains a close affair throughout the second half. Let's jump now into the fourth quarter, where we might have seen Miami trying to put this game away, and Miami is putting together a decent drive, but does end up stalling out. Miami does have to settle for a field goal. Field goal attempt is up, and it will be good. So Miami is up 16-10 as Frederick Moore has a chance to give his Bulldogs the lead. He tries to fire over the middle, and there was no Georgia receiver around. So who is he trying to throw to? Legitimately, who was he actually trying to throw that ball to? Miami does settle for a field goal, but the purpose of that is that Miami now has a 2-possession lead, and they are getting a lot closer to clinching a trip into the college football playoff once again. And Frederick Mueller taking that sack does not help things at all. And they're now within 4 minutes. Mueller dropping back. He's going to throw over to right-hand side. Finds a receiver. And that's Sean Garcia again, making a big play downfield. He's having a nice game for the Bulldogs. Nearly 100 yards receiving, and they might need him a little bit more here. Mueller dropping back. He's going to be dropped from behind, and the Georgia Bulldogs will settle for yet another field goal. Kick is up. The kick's going to be good, but very important on the next possession that they don't allow any points to be scored. Otherwise, they're right back to where they started. Thankfully, they don't. And Georgia has a chance to win it. With a chance with less than 2 minutes left to play. Hold up now. Is Antonio Paris going all the way? Well, that's Sean Garcia, but a 58-yard completion. And they also get the extra point. So, you want to talk about bringing the jaws of defeat, taking it out, and establishing victory. Georgia just did that, man. Georgia absolutely just did that. And Georgia is going to win 20-19 to win the SEC. But now let's go ahead and shift on over to the American Conference Championship. And we have a little bit of a surprising guess. You know, thought we were going to see Nebraska, the way that Nebraska has played all season long, and Nebraska beat this Minnesota team. But because we did end up seeing Nebraska take 2 bad losses outside of that Minnesota game against Iowa, game against Central Michigan, it is Minnesota that gets in instead. So frustrating that, you know, Nebraska beat Minnesota, and yet Minnesota's still here and hosts the American Conference Championship too as well. Let's not forget about that either. So that being said, we're jumping right into the American Conference action, and Darrell Harris, a little bit of fullback love, is actually going to start finding the end zone. That is a touchdown for Wisconsin. But in the early portions of the second quarter, Minnesota will answer back. A 10 toes down movement for Cornelius Green. I mean, look at this footwork. This is absolutely a catch at the NFL level as well. I mean, that concentration, absolutely ridiculous, man. So, got ourselves a tie ball game here, 7 apiece, as Lou Harrell is going to fire another big-time ball over the middle. He's going to find Brandon Fry, who is going to put the Minnesota Golden Gophers down by the goal line yet again. And Daniel Parker is going to find the end zone. That will be yet another touchdown for the Minnesota Golden Gophers, as Daniel Parker is going to break a school record for most rushing touchdowns in a campaign. That is his 19th rushing touchdown of the year. Dude has been balling out all year for Minnesota. But in the last 3 minutes of this first half, it is very evident why Wisconsin is here after all. Wisconsin absolutely not messing around by any means, and they do answer the bell after giving up 14 unanswered points. Mark Silva is going to find the end zone, and he will indeed throw a touchdown of his own. Got a tie ball game here at 14 apiece. That being said, less than 90 seconds left in the first half, though. Harrell trying to set up the screen, and it gets intercepted. It is picked off, and David Scott was the lucky recipient, read the screen the entire way, and just simply stepped right in front of it. And so Wisconsin was able to settle for a field goal. They take a lead going into the half, and we have a little bit of an upset alert here. Minnesota in some trouble, as they do need a touchdown in order to take the lead. 3rd and 11 coming up. Harrell's going to drop back. 3-man rush is going to find a man open in the back of the end zone. He finds Brandon Brown for the touchdown, and Minnesota is going to take the lead. They're going to be up by 1 singular point. Can Wisconsin answer back, though? No, they cannot. That's turned over, and Minnesota has a chance to really pull away here in the Twin Cities in front of the Minnesota faithful. But they can't do that. Minnesota misses their field goal. It's still a 1-point game, but they do have the ball with less than 3 minutes left to play, and they are quickly trying to put together a dagger of a drive. Wisconsin choosing not to use any of their timeouts. They start using them now. But eventually they do end up running out of timeouts. So the only way for Wisconsin to get the ball is if they let Minnesota score. And hey, Daniel Parker obliges. He is actually going to find the end zone after all. Choosing not to kneel it down could bite them in the butt. So Wisconsin does have one more chance to possibly tie this game up. And unfortunately, it looks like that fat lady, well, she might be singing after all, because Mark Silva, he is going to go down. He loses the ball. And now Minnesota has the ball yet again. They could just run out the clock, but this is a little bit of a rivalry game between Wisconsin and Minnesota. And because of that, Minnesota is going to, get some little style points in there, sprinkle that in. Minnesota is going to be your American Conference champion. And that does mean Minnesota is going to be back in the college football playoff for the very first time since season number 2. A very good program at Minnesota. That being said, we now shift over to the West Coast. And in the West Coast, we have your Mountain West Championship game. Colorado recently entering the top 25. But because of the collapse of Utah, however, instead of us seeing Utah in this Mountain West Championship game, and that was one of the premier teams in the Mountain West for most of the season, we're going to see Colorado State instead here. Colorado State just going to sneak on in here. Rumble in the Rockies, man. Rumble in the Rockies. We'll see who ends up coming out on top. And right now, it does seem like it is going to be a very close game. It's going to be a very tightly contested game as well. It does remain one possession for the vast majority of this game, it feels like, as both teams are just kind of trading punches. No one's making the big mistake yet. We'll see if that changes on this particular drive, though. Josh Cock makes the reception and gets to about midfield. And then with less than 2 minutes left to play, firing over to the left-hand side. Another big throw to Josh Cock, who's been a very central piece of this possession. So now, less than 100 seconds to go. Again, throwing over the middle and finds, again, Josh Cock. Josh Cock is just roaming all over the Buffalo secondary right now. We'll see if they go to him a fourth time. Well, they actually do go to somewhere different. Ryan Daniels. And then a couple of plays later, going to find the end zone. It is caught by Josh Cock, who single-handedly gives Colorado State the lead. He had his favorite target on that drive. And now Colorado on that upset alert right now. Colorado down by 10. Most of the way through the third quarter as well. The Colorado's looking to get back into the game, though, as the Buffaloes are going to find the end zone. Touchdown for this Buffalo squad, courtesy of Brant Miller. And it's back to a 3-point game once again. But Colorado State looking to respond as the Rams are trying to charge down the field all the time in the world, but tries to throw it down to the opposite hash. It's intercepted with a real danger of going back to the crib. No, it does. He ends up being tackled at about the 30, but it sets up Colorado very nicely to where they do end up getting a field goal out of that. And then 4.5 minutes left to play in the game. The Buffaloes are going to go ahead and retake the lead. So now Colorado State has to move down the length of the field in order to force overtime. They don't have any of their timeouts either. So, real danger time for the Rams. Their season on the line. A trip to the college football playoff also on the line. Dropping back, looks to the right-hand side and finds Josh Cock, who gets out of bounds and saves some time on this clock as well. But 30 seconds left to play. Certainly not relaxing by any means. They're going for it all. Deep down the field. It's intercepted. It's going to be picked off. And Colorado is going to the college football playoff for the second year in a row as they take down their rivals in the Mountain West Championship. But speaking of teams that could make the playoffs even though they're not ranked, how about a little bit of a Cinderella story? The Duke Blue Devils, led by the custom head coach P.J. McNair, His guys are taking on Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia, and we got a little bit of a snowy affair here in the great state of Virginia, but neither of these teams seem to be very bothered. Offenses are performing pretty decently well. Matt Coleman is going to find the end zone for the Duke Blue Devils, though, as backup quarterback Ryan Bates filling in for Sid Silva. He's going to find the end zone, and so Duke has a 14-7 lead, and it will quickly grow as well. Another touchdown for this Duke Blue Devils team. They are playing extremely well here in this first half, taking it to Virginia Tech, who has been one of the better teams, and what I would venture to say, probably one of the more underrated teams in the country. So Virginia Tech is ranked number 23, but in my opinion, I think Virginia Tech honestly should be a lot higher. And if Virginia Tech wins this game, I think they're going to be a tougher out in that college football playoff than what we saw from Virginia Tech last season. But Virginia Tech is going to cut this to a one-score game before we go into half. But hey, Duke's playing well, man. Duke is playing extremely well, even though on the surface it seems like Virginia Tech does have a lot more talent on their roster. But jumping into the second half, though, we do see Virginia Tech, well, them boys get the ball first, and it's not going to even take them a minute to drive down the length of this field. I think Virginia Tech is starting to take Duke seriously now, and the Blue Devils are finding out the hard way. Or maybe it's just one of those things where Duke is just running out of gas. I mean, they had to make quite a run in the second half of the season just to even be here in the first place. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and Virginia Tech turns a game that was actually extremely competitive in that first half of action. Well, all of a sudden, it's turning into an absolute splattering. And if Virginia Tech gets into the end zone again, then it's going to be a 50-piece against the Duke Blue Devils. And there it is, a 50-piece, and Virginia Tech will go on and dominate Duke in the ACC Championship to clinch that automatic bid as well. Now, we only have a couple of more games left here in this NCSL Championship weekend. And we now go to that beautiful West Coast. How about sunny LA, where the USC Trojans, ranked number 1 in the entire country, they're taking on the Washington Huskies. Now, USC is probably going to be okay regardless of what happens. USC likely, even if they lose, they would probably get one of the 2 at-large bids. But if Washington does win, that means it confirms the Pac-12 being a 2-bid league. So we'll see what ends up shaking out here. And Washington, on the opening drive, is going to score. They are going to open up with a 7-0 lead against the USC Trojans. But what I will also say is that it seems like USC is certainly one of the most complete teams in the country, looking to get back into the college football playoff after they failed to get in after winning that year number 2 national championship. USC is going to kick the field goal up, and that will be good. But Washington's playing strong. They are playing tight against this USC football team, and this is how they usually do it. They're more of a spread run type of team. They like to spread it out, but they really like to get their running backs involved a little bit more than maybe what you would typically see in your modern college offenses. But they're going to have to need to use their quarterback now because they have quite a hole to fill. But they are going to complete that pass to Cole McIntyre. They still pick up that first down anyway. So inside the 5-yard line, they try to set up the screen, but the screen is going to be intercepted. Shabazz Harris, one of your guys' customs, is going to give USC the lead. There's no flags on the field as well. And Shabazz Harris takes it all the way to the end zone. Touchdown Trojans. And USC is going to take the lead here in the Pac-12 championship game. That is a major swing of momentum. We were looking at Washington possibly taking a 14-3 lead, And now USC has the lead instead. Oh, that is just terrible execution there on the screen. Probably should have let that die out. But Washington's next possession, they will answer the call back. They'll find the end zone yet again. And Washington will actually take the lead into halftime regardless, though. But in start of the second half, though, USC is the team that starts with the ball. And USC, I don't know what they talked about in that locker room, but whatever they talked about in that locker room, it was certainly working. USC is able to drive down the length of the field, trying to get Victor Spence more involved. Haven't seen Victor Spence throw the ball all that much, and they might be looking to try to change that here in this second half. So 17-14, now your score, as they do get another goal line opportunity later on in that third quarter of action, and USC is going to capitalize yet again. Another touchdown for USC means that Washington finds itself down by double digits going into the final quarter. The season on the line for the Huskies, and they're not going away lightning. Johnny Russell is going to burn the USC secondary, finds the end zone, touchdown Huskies, and Washington is going to pull away a little bit further. 24-21 is your score. So if Washington could get a stop here, Washington has a chance to win this thing, but to be able to get a stop, you actually have to do this thing called tackling. And tackling is when you actually wrap somebody, not when you do one of these things where you try to lay down the hardest hit possible without using your arms. Washington found that out the hard way, and so Washington's down by 10 again. But Scott Johnson staying cool. He's going to fire over the middle, finds Roger Bradford gets the Huskies back to within a field goal, though. So, kind of same deal, just one stop. That's all they're asking for. Can we get one stop? Not even stopping them completely, like, just don't let them into this end zone and we should be okay. Well, I don't think they're going to be okay here because USC just got that first down. There's less than 2 minutes left to play, and they have a chance to run out the clock if they absolutely wanted to, but they choose to be aggressive instead. Thankfully, it works out for them, though. Terrell Salas is going to find the end zone for USC, and the Trojans up by 10 again. And at this point, it seems like Washington is going to need some kind of miracle. Like, they have to score quickly, field goal or touchdown. You don't have to go for the touchdown necessarily. And then they're going to need an onside kick as well. So, tough spot to be in if you're Washington. And yeah, I think we know what was going to happen there. So that's the third turnover of the day for Washington. It does end up being the ultimate difference. And USC is going to top Washington in this Pac-12 championship. They go to the playoff. Not just that, they get that #1 seed. Now, we have one more game left on the docket here today, and that is going to be that Big Ten championship. And they just simply call it the game between these two teams. Number 9, Ohio State, is going to be taking on number 4, Michigan. Now, Michigan could also be okay if they lose this game. However, Ohio State, it's either win or just settle for the regular bowl season. We'll see who wants it more. Ohio State is going to get things started. They get the ball to start this game, and Ohio State starts with a very good drive to start the ball game. Didn't even have to use Brooke Hicks all that much. He only had 2 pass attempts on that particular drive. But maybe we'll see him get warmed up a little bit more as the game goes on. But seems like Ohio State is getting that ground game going, and when Ohio State can get that ground game going, oh, baby, watch out, because that could be some dangerous times coming right up. And so Ohio State takes a 10-0 lead here in the Big Ten championship game on the road. And now Junior Blaylock is going to try to answer back, and he throws a bullet to TJ Graham, who finds the end zone. Touchdown, Michigan. And the Wolverines will pull it back to within just a field goal. That team up north, well, they're letting that presence being felt now. But closing moments of the first half, though, Brooks Hicks has some time in the pocket. He's going to fire a bullet himself. It's caught. Wide receiver makes a man miss. And that's a huge scamper into the end zone. Ian Snyder with serious momentum going into the halftime locker room after all. I mean, Brooks Hicks, if you give him that type of time, he's got the arm to pull it off, and that defender looked absolutely bamboozled. Did not know what hit him at all. But going into the second half, though, can this Ohio State team finish? And it looks like the answer could be a resounding yes. Because not only is Junior Blaylock going to be picked off, but PJ Rutledge is also going to take this all the way back to the crib. And that's a touchdown for the Ohio State Buckeyes. So it's starting to get on the verge of this game getting out of hand. Michigan absolutely needs to score on this drive. And they will ultimately score on this drive, but probably not necessarily what they are looking for. They're probably looking more than just a field goal. But just starting to try and claw back into the game. The problem is, Junior Blaylock is just not having his best game right now. He is not even close to having his best game right now. And those turnovers can be killer, especially against this Ohio State team, because later on they would turn that into yet another field goal. And so Ohio State now up 30-10. 30-10 is gonna be your score, as now Derek Hughes is looking at a 42-yard scamper down the sideline and is able to set him up in the red zone eventually, where Blaylock is gonna find TJ Graham in the corner of the end zone yet again. TJ Graham finding ways to get open constantly, especially when it matters, because TJ Graham, well, he is gonna have his second receiving touchdown of the day. He's been having a good performance. Ohio State cannot answer back with points of their own, so Michigan could possibly get back into this game after all, except the problem is, well, they just keep turning this football over. I mean, what are we actually doing here with this turning the football over? And Ohio State going to capitalize yet again. Brooks Hicks is that guy today. Another touchdown for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And it's starting to become more crystal clear that Ohio State is on the verge of making it back into the college football playoff. Still looking to exercise those demons back in year number 2, as we do end up seeing Michigan trying to come up with one more last gasp of air. Aaron Downs will score with 4 minutes left to play, but even with this touchdown, Michigan is still going to be down by 2 possessions here. 2-possession game, 4 minutes left. Let's see if Brooks Hicks can close the deal. He's going to go with the triple option, pitches it out to the tailback, who gets down the sideline, makes a man miss, and now it's a foot race down the sideline. Could be going all the way. No flags. Touchdown, Ohio State. And Jonathan Sherman puts an exclamation point on the Big Ten Championship, as the Ohio State Buckeyes are going to come out and they will take down the Michigan Wolverines 44-24 in the Big Ten Championship. So we made it through all of the conference championship games. We've made it through who is going to get those automatic bids into the playoff. But now we need to sort out who gets those 2 at-large bids. And for those 2 at-large bids, I did went in to the final college football playoff rankings. And now we're going to figure out who are the 2 best teams that did not win their conference. And it looks like our first team that we're going to see is the Miami Hurricanes. The Miami Hurricanes have been undefeated all season long, and Miami has gone about its business, going 12-0 in the regular season, lose by 1 to a top 5 Georgia team. So definitely makes sense for Miami to be included not only will they be in the playoff as an at-large, but they'll likely get a first-round bye as well. Checking out the other team that might have gotten that at-large bid, though, and a little bit of a surprise here, a little bit of a controversy. It's going to go to the Rainbow Warriors of Hawaii, not Michigan. Michigan coming in undefeated. The one loss, they were not impressed with Michigan in that game. And this was a team that was actually decent in top 25 matchups. They went 2-2 in those top 25 matchups, hung tough with USC. You know, the only bad loss was when they went on the road to take on Washington. They did finish the year on a 3-game winning streak, though. And so, carrying that momentum into postseason play, Hawaii is going to be in. They'll be your number 6 team in this college football playoff. But that also means we have our fair share of teams that just feel like they got snubbed. I mean, how about Michigan? Michigan went undefeated. They lose a game and that was enough. But if you dive deeper into that schedule, you could kind of see why. I mean, not really an impressive schedule at all. They did not play a singular ranked team the entire season. All of their teams that they played against were ranked outside the top 25. Ohio State was the first time, and this was at home, by the way, and they lose pretty convincingly. So the strength of schedule was simply not there, as for say. You got your Big 12 champion, your MAC champion, couple of more snubs. LSU, a good season for them as well, 11-2 being their final record, and the Sun Belt is considered a good conference. However, their division was the lighter side of the Sun Belt Conference this year, it seemed like. Besides Arkansas, this was really a 2-team race. They didn't really play against elite competition. Charlotte may be the closest to that at 8-4 this year, besides the Arkansas game, but that blowout for Ole Miss made it really difficult to stomach the idea of putting them in as an at-large. And then at number 12 is Florida State. I mean, Florida State, they were not going to be in their conference championship game anyways because they're in the same division as Miami. But that loss to Florida at the end of the season is what killed them here. Florida, you know, having a bad loss this late in the season. You know, that 16-17 loss to Florida, which was disappointing in itself, that was the last memory of Florida State football, and so that really hurt them here in this circumstance. They're also going to ultimately be left out of the college football playoff. So that does end up meaning that your NCSL playoff field is officially going to be set. And because this playoff field does officially get set, we know the 12 teams that have an opportunity to compete for a national championship. USC, Georgia, Miami, and Ohio State will get buys into the quarterfinals, but a couple of you guys' custom coaches are also in here as well. Jake Jacobs, the defensive coordinator at Georgia, he's here in this playoff. The offensive coordinator for Northern Illinois, Thomas Hammock Jr., his guys are going to go to Austin, Texas to take on the Texas Longhorns in the first round, and I'm sure there's going to be some other surprises that could very well happen in this NCSL 12-team playoff when it's all said and done. But with that being said, what we do have in store for the next episode is that we will have bowl season, and we will play every single bowl game for you guys. That will be included in the next episode, so I hope you guys are excited for it. If you are, make sure you go ahead and smack that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. If you do have to be brand new to the channel, this is John J Gaming on the mic signing off, but hoping you guys are out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.